Look, we all know that trying to buy a house in America right now feels less like the American dream and more like a competitive blood sport where you're trying to outbid a sentient Excel spreadsheet with a trust fund. You save for a decade, you skip avocado toast, you promise your firstborn to a mortgage broker, and you still lose a bidding war for a 2-bedroom shack that smells like cat sadness to an all-cash offer from Generational Wealth LLC. But what if I told you this isn't just your bad luck? What if I told you it's not a crisis, but a plan? They're calling it a housing reset. That sounds harmless, doesn't it? It sounds like something a helpful IT guy does to your router. But what's happening is less like unplugging it and plugging it back in, and more like unplugging your grandma's life support so they can charge their vape. This isn't a reset, it's a robbery, and you are the target. So how does this robbery begin? Well, with the government, of course. The Trump administration is apparently considering declaring a national housing emergency, potentially as soon as this fall. Now, you might think, great, it is an emergency. Are they going to be building new homes? Are they going to be giving us down payments? No. This emergency would grant unprecedented federal powers to reshape the market. The Treasury Secretary, a man named Scott Bessent, confirmed everything is on the table, including standardizing local zoning codes. They want to use emergency powers to override your local community's decisions. So that fight that you're having over a new apartment complex, forget it. The feds may soon just decide that your neighborhood park would look much better as a 30-story luxury vinyl plank paradise, probably owned by a guy who lists his yacht as his primary residence. And it gets worse. They've also created a task force to identify federal land for housing. And this sounds great until you realize the federal government owns 80% of Nevada, 63% of Utah, and 45% of California. They're not planning to build duplexes in San Francisco or Miami or New York City. They're planning to build condos for rattlesnakes and whatever weirdos are really into Mad Max cosplay. It's a massive giveaway to developers to build in the middle of nowhere. And it does absolutely nothing for you unless you want to live in the middle of nowhere. Look, I think most of us can agree that for decades, agencies like HUD have become bloated, inefficient, and haven't served the American people as they should. The idea of changing that, of actually draining the swamp, is what many of us have been asking for. It's what a lot of us voted for. So when you hear that the administration is bringing in an outside tiger team, like the one Elon Musk put together, to find efficiencies, the intent is right on target. We must cut waste. But this is where we have to ask the hard questions. This isn't just about a consulting report. The word is that this team is literally operating inside of HUD right now with plans to freeze funds, fire nearly half the staff, and cut $1.25 billion. The goal is efficiency, and that's a goal I support, but the method is a blitzkrieg. It's incredibly aggressive. And when you move that fast, are you really just trimming the fat, or are you cutting into the bone and muscle without even knowing it? And this brings us to the bigger picture, Project 2025. Again, the idea is to tackle the massive failing bureaucracy, but the proposal is a 44% cut to HUD's programs, a $33.6 billion cut. And as a patriot who loves this country, I gotta ask, at what cost? When you use a sledgehammer that big, you don't just hit waste, you hit everything. So let's look at what's actually in this plan. It would convert rental assistance into state block grants. Now, I'm all for more local control, but the fear is this isn't really about control. It's just about sending less money to the states and then forcing them to figure it out. It imposes 2-year time limits on housing assistance. The goal is to promote work, which we all support. I'm all about that. But what about the elderly, the disabled? What about families in towns where the jobs have already left? It would eliminate community development block grants and cut long-term support for homelessness programs. This is the part that's deeply concerning. This isn't a scalpel, it's a chainsaw. We're talking about 90,000 people in the Bay Area alone who could lose their housing support. And those aren't abstract numbers. Those are families, those are people, those are veterans, those are people who are trying, but the system, it's already stacked against them. Are we fixing the government by pushing tens of thousands of people into a brutal rental market, one that's increasingly being cornered by Wall Street? Now, this isn't a left or a right issue. This is a common sense issue. It's the exact point that Congressman made when he looked the HUD secretary in the face and said, "You're not doing God's work." We do have to fix what's broken in this country, and there's plenty that's broken, but we cannot break our own people in the process. And this brings us to the main event, the crown jewel of the entire grift, the privatization of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now stay with me here. Fannie and Freddie are the weird, boring, government-sponsored companies that basically are the American mortgage market. market. They guarantee $6.6 trillion in mortgage debt. The only reason your affordable 30-year fixed rate mortgage even exists is because of their implicit government guarantee. And Wall Street wants to buy them. They are quietly calculating what could be a $330 billion public offering. And here's the most infuriating part. After the 2008 bailout, Fannie and Freddie already paid the government back $301 billion. That's $110 billion more than they were given. So this isn't a rescue, it's a heist. The second they become private companies, that government guarantee that keeps your mortgage rate stable, poof, gone. It vanishes. Your mortgage rates will inevitably go up. Also, a few investment banks can cash in on the largest financial transaction in years. So the government is cutting your safety net, and Wall Street is about to make your mortgage more expensive. Who, you might ask, is actually buying all of these houses? Institutional investors. And you will hear media reports saying, oh, they only own 0.67% of all housing. That is a dangerously misleading statistic. That's like saying a great white shark only owns 0.67% of the ocean. It doesn't matter. What matters is, where are they feeding? You know, in Atlanta, investors own 25% of the single family rental market. In Jacksonville, 21%. In Charlotte, 18%. Right now, investors account for nearly 30% of all single family home purchases, the highest rate on record, and they are targeting the exact homes first-time buyers need. Starter homes under $300,000. They show up with all cash. They waive their inspections and they close in 5 days. And you, with your FHA loan and your quaint desire to make sure that the foundation isn't made of Swiss cheese, you can't compete. And the result? The average age of a first-time home buyer right now has hit 38 years old. That's up 5 years in just the last 5 years. You're supposed to be having a midlife crisis and buying a sports car at that age, not finally moving out of your parents' basement. And once they own the houses, it gets even worse. They're using algorithmic price-fixing software like RealPage's YieldStar to illegally collude and hike your rent. In Seattle, rents rose 33% in RealPage buildings, while non-algorithm buildings only saw a 3.9% increase. Multiple attorneys general are suing them for this right now. And executives at firms like Blackstone, which just bought 37,000 more homes, are on earnings calls celebrating that new construction is down 75%. They're celebrating that, saying that it creates pricing power for rental housing assets. They're not just buying the monopoly, they're bragging about it. This is all happening at the exact same time as the Great Wealth Transfer, where $84 trillion is moving from baby boomers to their kids. But it's creating a two-tier system. Kids whose parents can give them a house, and well, everybody else. So 1, the government plans to cut housing aid for the poor. 2, it's simultaneously helping developers grab federal land. 3, Wall Street is planning to privatize the mortgage system to make borrowing more expensive. And 4, giant investor groups are algorithmically buying up every starter home in sight and jacking up the rent. This is the housing reset they're preparing. They are systematically turning the American dream of ownership into a lifelong subscription service where the rent is always due and your landlord is a server farm in Delaware. And here's your mic drop fact. While 75% of American households cannot afford a median price new home, 26% of all home purchases last year were made in cash, the highest rate ever recorded. This isn't rich families buying vacation homes. It's investors systematically outbidding families who need financing. So what can you do? Well, first, pay attention to local zoning. That emergency power to override your town, it only works if you're not at the meetings. So show up, scream about it. Second thing, support tenant protection laws and right to purchase acts, which give tenants the first crack at buying their building before a corporation can. And finally, demand your representatives in Congress stop the privatization of Fannie and Freddie. This isn't a left or right issue. This is a can I please just live somewhere without selling a kidney issue. Those are the actions that you can take to fight back, and you absolutely should do them. You should call your representatives. You should show up at those local zoning meetings. You have to make your voice heard. But we need to be realistic. We have to be logical about what we're really up against. I mean, will it work? It might, but let's be perfectly honest. It probably won't. I mean, is your phone call going to stop a $330 billion Wall Street payday? Is your protest at a town hall going to stop institutional investors who are algorithmically buying 30% of the starter homes with cash? This reset, it's already in motion. The train it's left the station. So that brings us to the hard truth. You can spend all your energy trying to stop them, or you can figure out how to get a ticket. And this is the part they don't want you knowing about. If you can't beat them, your next best course of action is to join them. And here's what I mean. While they're systematically locking you out of home ownership, ownership, they're simultaneously creating the biggest wealth building opportunity in a generation. And you've heard this before, certainly. A rising tide lifts all boats. Well, the institutional investors flooding the market aren't just buying houses to be evil, they're buying them because real estate is about to become the most profitable asset class of the next decade. Think about it. If Wall Street is spending hundreds of billions to corner the housing market, if algorithms are determining rent prices, if the government is literally reshaping zoning laws to benefit developers, they obviously see something coming that's going to make them obscenely wealthy. The question isn't whether this real estate boom is happening. It's already happening. The question is, are you going to sit on the sidelines complaining about how unfair it is, and it is unfair, or are you going to figure out how to get a piece of the action because you can? Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, but I work 50 hours a week. I don't know the first thing about real estate investing, and I don't have time to flip houses or deal with tenants calling me at 2 a.m. about broken toilets, and I definitely don't have the connections to compete with Blackstone. Well, what if I told you there's a way to profit from this exact same rig system without becoming a full-time real estate mogul? What if you could get your boats in the water while keeping your day job and your sanity? This next video right here, it's going to show you exactly how regular people with jobs, people without trust funds, people who can't outbid algorithms are still building serious wealth in real estate. And no, it doesn't involve becoming a landlord or learning how to swing a hammer. If you're tired of being the target, it's time to learn how to be the investor.